There is something 35 meters below the surface of the South China Sea right now. It's not a submarine. It's not a military installation. It's a brain, a digital brain, processing your data, answering your queries, running AI computations. And it weighs more than 1,000 passenger cars. This is a story of how an idea that sounded like science fiction became real infrastructure. How a problem that was quietly eating the planet, a problem most people have never heard of, pushed engineers to do something that has never been done before. And honestly, it started not in China, but in a single idea pitched at a Microsoft brainstorming session over a decade ago. Let's go back to the beginning. Okay, here's something nobody tells you. When you ask an AI a question, like write me a poem or help me write an email, somewhere in a building the size of a football stadium, thousands of processors just lit up. They computed, they got hot, and now something has to cool them down. Here's the brutal truth about AI and data centers. Up to 40% of all the electricity they consume isn't actually doing any computing. It's just fighting heat. Cooling systems, chillers, air conditioners, enormous fans running 24/7. A single large data center can use as much electricity as 100,000 homes. And with the AI boom exploding, think ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Gemini, all of it, we are building these things faster than at any point in human history. And it's not just electricity either, it's water too. Large data centers can cycle through millions of gallons of fresh water every single day just to keep their cooling towers running. Some of the world's biggest data centers are being built in Arizona, in Spain, in the Middle East, places where water is already precious. This is the crisis hiding in plain sight, the invisible fire powering the digital age. So what if you could stop fighting the heat? What if instead of building expensive cooling systems to fight nature, you just gave the heat somewhere to go? What if the answer was already covering 71% of the planet? In 2013, Microsoft had what you might call a crazy Friday afternoon idea. At their internal innovation event called Think Week, an employee pitched something that most people would have laughed out of the room. What if we built a data center and sank it in the ocean? Instead of laughing, they funded it. They called it Project Natick. Phase 1 was almost absurdly small by today's standards. A tiny capsule, about the size of a large car, lowered into the Pacific Ocean. It ran for 105 days. It worked. So they went bigger. In June 2018, Microsoft lowered a steel tube into the North Sea 117 feet down, off the coast of the remote Orkney Islands in Scotland. Inside, 864 servers. Total storage, 27.6 petabytes, roughly 5 million movies. Then they did something remarkable. They just left it there. No maintenance crew, no technicians, no check-ins. For 2 years, those servers ran, cooled by the cold North Atlantic, powered by the nearby renewable energy grid, which remarkably, the Orkney Islands run almost entirely on wind and tidal energy. When they finally pulled it back up in 2020, something almost nobody expected happened. The data was extraordinary. Out of 864 servers, only 6 had failed. On land, the equivalent test group failed at a rate 8 times higher. The theory: no oxygen-driven corrosion, no temperature fluctuations, no humans accidentally bumping into things. The ocean floor, it turns out, is a surprisingly gentle environment for electronics. Natick lead Ben Cutler summed it up bluntly. Our failure rate in the water is 1/8 of what we see on land. This wasn't a proof of concept anymore. This felt like the future. And then Microsoft walked away from it. Now, here's where it gets genuinely fascinating, because this is one of those moments in tech history where the story splits into two completely different directions. In June 2024, Microsoft's head of cloud operations, Noelle Walsh, made it official in an interview with Data Center Dynamics. She said plainly, "I'm not building subsea data centers anywhere in the world." Not a failure. Microsoft said the project worked. They said they learned enormously from it. So why stop? The answer is AI, specifically the scale of AI. Here's the thing. Project Natick was designed for small modular cloud computing pods, efficient, reliable, deployable near coastal cities. That made sense in 2018. But the AI era needs something different. Training a large language model, the kind that powers ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Gemini, all of it, needs thousands of massive interconnected GPUs. They need to be constantly expanded, swapped out, and maintained by human hands. Doing that 117 feet underwater, that's a logistical nightmare. A broken server on land gets fixed in a few hours. Underwater, you're looking at an ROV deployment, potential 48-hour downtime windows, and costs that scale dramatically. Microsoft didn't abandon the ocean because it was wrong. They abandoned it because AI changed the rules. The future Microsoft is building requires nuclear reactors and massive land-based supercomputer campuses, not elegant little capsules on the seafloor. But someone else was watching very, very closely. While Microsoft was stepping back, China was sprinting forward. A marine technology company called Highlander, also known as High Cloud, had been studying the underwater data center concept seriously since around 2020. They ran test pods in the Pearl River in China. They studied the engineering. They built partnerships. And in 2021, they broke ground on something nobody had attempted before. Not a research experiment, not a government pilot, a fully commercial underwater data center. The location, Lingshui County, Hainan Province, off China's tropical southern coast. The specs, each underwater cabin weighs 1,300 tons, roughly the weight of 1,000 passenger cars. Each one sits 35 meters beneath the surface. Each cabin holds 24 racks, capable of housing 400 to 500 servers. And in late 2023, the first cabin went live. Researcher Zhang Ning from UC Davis put it bluntly. Hailan Yun moved from a pilot project in December 2022 to commercial rollouts within 25 months, something Microsoft's Project Natick never attempted. Then in June 2025, they launched a second facility, this time off the coast of Shanghai, and this one took the concept even further. This facility is connected to offshore wind turbines just kilometers away. It draws 95% of its electricity from wind power. The ocean cools the servers, the wind powers them. Total investment $226 million US. Total power capacity 24 megawatts, with a second phase targeting 500 megawatts of offshore wind-powered capacity. That PUE rating, power usage efficiency, of 1.15 means that for every unit of energy used for computing, only 0.15 units are wasted on overhead. The global average for data centers is around 1.5. Some facilities struggle to get below 1.4. This isn't incremental improvement, this is a generational leap. Now, let's be honest, because this channel doesn't just tell you the exciting parts. There are real, legitimate concerns about this technology, and if we're going to talk about the future, we have to talk about all of it. The first concern is the environment. Microsoft's own researchers found that the ocean around Microsoft Natick had a slightly warmer near the discharge points. They wrote, the water just meters downstream of a Natick vessel would get warmer, but only by thousandths of a degree. Limited impact. But scale it up, not one capsule, but hundreds, and the question gets more complex. Researchers have raised concerns that during marine heat waves, which are becoming more frequent with climate change, even small additional heat loads could stress fragile ecosystems. Hailan Yun has cited its own assessments, saying one of their test pods in the Pearl River raised surrounding water temperature by less than 1 degree. But independent monitoring at scale, that's still an open question. The second concern is security. A 2024 study found that underwater data centers could potentially be disrupted by specific acoustic frequencies, sound attacks, essentially. A hostile actor with an underwater speaker system could theoretically interfere with the hardware. And there's the ever-present physical threat, a stray ship anchor, an undersea earthquake, a freak storm. Fiber optic cables on the seabed are cut by anchors dozens of times every year. Third, maintenance. This is the problem that stopped Microsoft. Repairs are slow, expensive, and complicated. The entire Hailan Yun model accounts for this by designing the cabins to last 25 years without needing to surface. Essentially, you build in redundancy and accept that access will be rare. That works for stable cloud storage. For the constantly evolving, constantly expanding world of AI training, it's a harder sell. This isn't a magic solution. Every honest engineer in this field will tell you that. It's a powerful tool with real trade-offs. Here's what makes this story so much bigger than one data center in Hainan. The world is in an energy arms race for AI dominance, and every major power is solving the equation differently. China is betting on the ocean, blue economy, offshore wind, coastal cities. The United States is betting on nuclear. Microsoft just reopened 3 Mile Island. Google announced its first small modular reactor in Tennessee. Amazon, Meta, they're all racing towards nuclear-powered AI infrastructure. Europe is leaning into geothermal. Iceland, in particular, runs data centers on volcanic heat, green energy that's available 24/7 regardless of wind or sun. But China's move isn't just about technology or sustainability. There's a geopolitical dimension that almost nobody's talking about. By building data infrastructure offshore in international adjacent coastal waters, China creates computing assets that exist outside traditional land zoning laws. They reduce dependence on vulnerable land-based power grids, and in doing so, they begin to move their digital sovereignty offshore, literally and figuratively. Hainan's 14th five-year plan already calls for 100 underwater data cabins. Not 10, not a pilot, 100. This is state-level infrastructure investment being deployed at national scale. That's a different game from what any private Western company has attempted. So where does this leave us? We're watching a collision of forces that will shape the next 20 years of technology. The insatiable hunger of AI for power, the planet's inability to casually supply that power, and human ingenuity in all its messy, imperfect, often surprising forms trying to thread the needle. The underwater data center isn't the final answer. It's one piece of a puzzle that every government, every tech company, and in a very real sense, every one of us, every person who uses AI, streams video, stores data in the cloud, has a stake in. Microsoft explored the idea and walked away, but not without leaving a roadmap. China picked up that roadmap, ran with it, and is now building infrastructure that could power the AI ambitions of the world's most populous nation. And the rest of the world, still figuring it out. One thing is certain, the age of pouring concrete in the desert and hoping the power grid holds up, that age is ending. The future of intelligence, artificial and otherwise, may well be built not on land, but where the heat can finally, quietly disappear. Hey, if you made it this far, you clearly care about understanding how the world actually works, not just the headlines. That's exactly what this channel is for. And if something in this video made you think, a fact that surprised you, a question it raised, drop it in the comments. I read them. I mean that. The subscribe button's right there. No pressure. It'll be there when you're ready.